You get the end of MSNBC, literally the end. I mean, well, it's going to live on in some other form. I guess they're calling it MS Now, but nobody really knows how to pronounce it. Not even Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow saying, I don't know how to pronounce this thing. And so when I look at, for example, even the ratings that they're seeing at some of these networks, I mean, wow, look at how challenged they are, right? And by the way, it's not just MSNBC and CNN. It's actually also other networks, including Fox, which has really been leading the way. So I think this is speaking about the overall challenges within the industry. But for sure, a lot of change is going to be happening, and that's to be expected. The president weighed in today. He weighed in on the name change for MSNBC to whatever it is, MS Now. Interestingly, they're keeping, poor Microsoft. Microsoft's like, wait a second, we just gave you a few bucks initially, and now we're stuck with this forever. Here's the president speaking about the end of MSNBC.
Then you turn to CNN, which is fake news and nobody watches it, or MSDNC, they changed, MSNBC, they changed their name now because they were so bad. But they're the worst, owned by Comcast, run by a guy named Brian Roberts, who doesn't have a clue. He's terrible manager. But they're not, I don't think, selling it. They're changing the name because they're ashamed of it, and they're disassociating it from NBC, which is also fake news. They should be ashamed of that too. But a lot of fake news. I think the news is getting better. They're learning that they have no credibility. ABC, CBS was just sold to a great person that I know very well. A great man. He actually just bought CBS, and I think he's going to do the right thing with it. NBC is run terribly by Comcast. I call it Concast because it's a whole con.
Concast, you get it? So Comcast is the one that owns NBC and MSNBC and CNBC and all of these cable companies, and they're spinning them off in this spinoff called Versant. And that's supposed to happen by the end of the year. And they can't get away from their talent. People like, they already got rid of Joy Reid, but I even think, Rachel Maddow's in that crowd as well, which may explain why she's being kind of reluctant and resistant and won't actually say the name, whereas Joe Scarborough is the survivor and out there trying to sing a different tune in this day and age. But it doesn't matter. I think just fundamentally, the whole sort of cable thing is over. And it's funny what happened to me earlier in the show, if you guys were watching, and the camera went out. And, look, you're here with me when the camera goes out. And I'm sorry about that, right? But I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade it. I really wouldn't, because to be able to have this kind of autonomy and transparency with all of you and not to have middle management in the way is a big freaking deal. And this is the first time in my entire career where I've owned my content, and I'm 1,000% responsible, literally even for the camera, right? So, we take the good with the bad, but overwhelmingly it's good. It's really, really good. So we're coming up on 1 million subs. I mean, think about that. It's wild. And it's because of your commitment and, of course, my willingness to get up here live every day and deal with, and you deal with me, right? Because sometimes the audio works with the camera. Because that's the first time that's happened, actually, I think. The audio, well, we've had our day. Have we not, Leslie? Leslie will be like, your mic's not on. Hopefully it is. But I look at these networks right now, and they're so clueless because they're spending all this money for these very, very big productions with lots of lights and 40 people in the control room, this, that, and the other, and very controlled, and everybody's writing the scripts, and maybe you get a little impromptu action during the actual interviews. But I still say maybe because, you're only allowed to stray so far. You got middle management and upper management breathing down your back constantly. It's not the way to live, as we say, or not the way to report. I get a kick out of this guy, Kernan. He's a good one. He's one of the, few, but I do think business reporters tend to be a little bit smarter, shall we say, than the political reporters. He's over on CNN, and I loved seeing this because the other day he had Hakeem Jeffries on, and Hakeem doesn't know what hit him. Just doesn't. He's like, wait a second. Who put me on CNBC? I thought it was going to be MSNBC, where all my friends are. But it was. Kernan, watch.
All I can tell you is that the inflation rate itself was 2.7% in the most recent read year over year, versus it got to a high of 9% under Biden. Stocks are at record highs. Unemployment is 4.2%. That's full employment. The GDP was 3%. The border is actually secure. We've got trade deals with EU, Japan, many more in the works, and trillions of dollars of foreign investment coming here. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been set back indefinitely. And I just wrote down a few things. So I just have to ask you, where is the calamity that you're talking about? And it almost seems like for Democrats, socialism is the answer to these problems. Or, I don't know, an end of democracy or something? We just don't get it.
I'm here. Now we're scared every time, right? Anyway, look, I think that there's going to be a lot of changes coming. And Hakeem, somehow managed to fight his way through that interview. But I wanted to show you that because I think it's important, one, for you to know that at least over on the business news side, where they get to keep their name, interestingly enough, CNBC gets to stay CNBC, whereas MS can no longer be MSNBC. So CNBC coming out the victor on that one. It actually was the original name, believe it or not, back in the day. Consumer News and Business, something, whatever it stood for, but it was actually an acronym that stood for their channel name. And so they're going to stick with that. Again, I think that you've got to get some kind of middle ground, right? I'm not saying that we're going to just praise Trump, for goodness sakes. That wouldn't be right either. Credit where credit's due. And then when it's not due, you say it. And then when you're not sure, like sometimes we get live breaking news and, I have a few different views on Intel. One is that I don't want the government running companies in any way, shape, or form. But two is this is a semiconductor company. So it's a little bit different because let's face it, we have to kowtow to a certain extent with China. Because why? Because they turn off, if they take over Taiwan, okay, let's just game this out for a second. If they take over Taiwan and all of a sudden we don't have semiconductors, it's like what powers everything. It's like oil all over again, for goodness sake. So, I look at Intel and say, why haven't you guys been able to figure out, how to do this here at home? Why are we so reliant on Taiwan? And I know the president is looking at it the same way. So that may be a reason why they're saying, okay, we want to have a stake in the company. We need to actually have more ownership. We need to know that you guys are doing the right thing for the country. Because as great as capitalism is, occasionally, especially when it comes to certain industries, it could really make or break you, literally, you do need somebody looking out for the future of the United States. That's been my complaint with politics for as long as it's been around, right? You don't really have politicians looking out for the people. They look out for themselves and how to get reelected. And in looking out for themselves, what do? They need to make sure that they have plenty of donors and plenty of money in their coffers so that they can run their election campaign. And everything's changed, of course. You have a way to go direct to the people now, and Trump figured that out before anyone. But still, this has been their focus. And as a result of that, they're kowtowing to every CEO and every business group, and they're not thinking about what it means for the American economy and the American people in the process. And so, sure, if a company wants to go over to China and make more money because they're in China and China steals all the technology, that's okay. That's just the price of doing business, right? The CEO doesn't care. He or she's only looking at 3 months down the road, or maybe 6 months, and at most a year. We need a longer plan, okay? We need somebody who's looking out for the long-term future of the United States. And so you have to bleed that together with capitalism in order to have the greatest productivity. And I think that's where the challenge is, and that's what this administration is trying to meet. So that's a long-winded way of saying, one, I think the Intel thing is going to be okay. And two, yeah, MSNBC is going bye-bye because it can't make it as a business, same as all these other legacy media networks. And a lot of the talent's going to have to go bye-bye because you cannot pay $25 million for one show a week from your, signature gal there. Good deal for her. Heard she took a pay cut. Apparently she was at 30. Look, hey, if they're that stupid, and they are, then more power to her, I guess. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe when you get a moment. Go over to 76 Research. Check it out. My company, 76portfolios.com. If you want to invest in specific stocks, we have 3 different portfolios. But listen, we're on a tear here. Good things coming ahead. I will see you back on the program. Gosh, we got a weekend, right? What a way to go into a Friday. Gosh, I might have to work this weekend. Make sure you hit the bell. See you soon.